The internet is obsessed with Roger Federer's recent gift of a brand new automobile to Alex Eala. However, this was more than simply a gift. It was an opportunity to learn more about gratitude, mentoring, and the unspoken connections within tennis. No one anticipated it. Eala was commemorating a professional achievement one moment. The following, she was stunned when one of the greatest athletes of all time gave her the keys to something she had never anticipated. Every second was recorded by the cameras. The embrace that felt like a passing of the torch, the tears, the shock. Millions of people started asking the same question in a matter of hours. Why her? Why right now? What does this actually mean? The relationship between Alex Eala and Roger Federer didn't begin with a viral event, as most people are unaware. Years ago, a teenage girl from the Philippines was working through drills in the silent corners of a training facility in Switzerland. She was far from home and pursuing a dream that seemed unattainable to everyone but herself. Prior to enrolling at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain at the age of 14, Eala trained in Switzerland, where the Federer brand was not just legendary but ubiquitous. Due in large part to Roger's achievements and generosity, the Swiss Tennis Federation has drawn young talent from all over the world. One of those talents was Alex, who was hungry, silent, and determined. She wasn't being coached by Federer. Most of the time, he wasn't even present. However, his presence was sensed. Programs financed by his charity gave young athletes like Eala access to top-notch facilities. The culture she trained in was infused with his philosophy, discipline, grace, and unwavering improvement. Roger observed her play one day while on a rare visit to the training facility. He spoke very little. Even in practice, he saw her shot selection, footwork, and the way she battled for every point. He approached her after the session, introduced himself, and said something straightforward as though she didn't already know who he was. "Continue. You possess something unique." Those remarks provided gasoline for Alex. She supported them through every setback, injury, and uncertain moment. Roger, too? He tracked in silence. He tracked her outcomes. He witnessed her victory in the U.S. Open girls singles competition in 2022. He saw her rise to the top of the WTA rankings. He was familiar with her tale. He recognized a Filipino athlete who was breaking barriers in a sport dominated by North America and Europe. However, none of this was known to the outside world. The majority of fans saw Alex Eala as a promising rising star. She was evidence to Roger Federer that the next generation was prepared, that his efforts to create avenues for young players were succeeding, and that tennis remained fundamentally about passion, selflessness, and the conviction that everything was possible. Roger didn't hesitate to take advantage of the chance to accomplish something significant that would honor her path and motivate others. He had always believed in gestures that mattered, not for attention or headlines, but because true moments of connection were uncommon and potent in a sport that could be chilly and commercial. This was one of those times when everything was going to change. However, what precisely transpired to cause this gesture? What significant event made Federer take action? It was the end of April. The greatest victory of Alex Eala's professional career had just occurred. She had achieved success after persevering through lower-tier WTA competitions and challenger events for months. At a WTA 250 event, she won her first major match on the main circuit by defeating a player ranked in the top 50 in straight sets. It was an electrifying match. Everything Eala had been striving for was evident in her aggressive baseline play, brave net approaches, and unwavering refusal to be intimidated. However, the setting was more important than the victory alone. Eala's season was on the verge of collapse due to a wrist injury. She wondered if she would ever return to her finest shape after spending weeks in rehab. The strain was oppressive, sponsors were becoming anxious, and her ranking had declined. Nevertheless, she returned stronger, more focused, and sharper than before. When asked about the trip and what kept her going in her darkest moments during her post-match interview, she gave an honest, unvarnished, and intensely personal response. She discussed how her family in the Philippines gave up everything to allow her to pursue her training elsewhere. She discussed the loneliness of spending years away from home. She spoke about the instructors, the physiotherapists, and the people who had faith in her despite the lack of results. Then she said something that surprised everyone. "Years ago, someone I looked up to told me I had something special," she recalled. "I preserved that memory even though I didn't believe it at the time. And I kept thinking about those words whenever I felt like giving up." Roger Federer was not mentioned by her. She was not required to. There is not much of a tennis community. Word spreads quickly, and people began making the connections in a matter of hours. Journalists examined previous interviews. The narrative took on a new level when fans discovered photos of a young Eala training in Switzerland. Roger watched the interview. He could see the feeling in her eyes. He noticed the burden she had been bearing. And he made a choice because he knew what it was like to strive for every bit of accomplishment in a sport that could be cruel and unforgiving, not as a public relations ploy or as a brand advocate for any business. He contacted her team, inquired about her whereabouts in the upcoming weeks, and began organizing an event that would commemorate both her triumph and her journey. Something that would convey a message to all the young players in attendance. Your narrative counts, your effort matters, and others who have been in your shoes see you. The moment was drawing near, the scene was set, and nobody, not even Alex, knew what was about to happen. Then it took place. The moment when the internet would go down. It was meant to be a standard sponsor event. Alex Eala received an invitation to a low-key tennis event in Zurich to commemorate her recent achievements. She was informed by the organizers that it would be informal, with meet and greets, a few pictures, and possibly a brief address. She wore a modest gown, had no expectations, and was simply appreciative of the notice. The location was tasteful, but modest. The room was filled with a small group of journalists, tennis lovers, and fans. Alex entered, waved, grinned, and sat down close to the front. The MC started up by greeting everyone for attending, praising Alex's recent accomplishments, saying typical things, and receiving courteous applause. The host then uttered something that made her heart skip a beat. "Someone wanted to join you in celebrating your journey today, Alex." Roger Federer entered through a side entrance as the lights went down. The room exploded. Cameras flashed, fans shrieked, and Alex's hand shot to her mouth. She was in disbelief. Roger approached her with wide arms and his trademark cool, collected demeanor. For a brief moment, everything else vanished as they embraced. The pressure, the cameras, and the cacophony. It was only two individuals who knew what it meant to stand up for something greater than themselves. Roger then took a step back, grinned, and said, "Alex, I've been following your journey for a long time, and I wanted to do something to honor what you've accomplished. Not just on the court, but also the way you've represented your country, your family, and everyone who has ever doubted themselves." He pointed to the doorway. A covered platform was moved by two attendants. The audience fell silent. Alex appeared perplexed. Roger gave a nod. They pulled back the cover. It was a sleek, silver, brand-new Mercedes-Benz EQS with a bespoke license plate that said AE22, her initials, and the year she won the U.S. Open Girls title. Alex froze, tears welling up in her eyes. Speechless, she glanced at Roger, who merely grinned. He added, "You've earned this because of everything you've done to get here, not because of one match." She was unable to contain it. Tears started to flow. The audience erupted in cheers as she gave him another, stronger hug. Roger gave the keys to her. Still in shock, she grasped them as if they were made of glass. Every second was recorded by the cameras. Her shaking hands, her weeping grin, and Roger's gentle touch on her shoulder, as though to say, "You belong here." Then she started talking. She was able to say, "I don't even know what to say," despite the tears and intense emotion. "This is all of it. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you had faith in me when I didn't." The video became viral in a matter of minutes. Sports networks, news sources, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. The video showing Roger grinning quietly, Alex sobbing, and the keys being given to him went viral right away. Tens of millions of views by the end of the day, with millions in the first hour. However, the internet wasn't merely observing. It was responding, and different people had different perspectives. Because, despite how lovely the event was, it provoked an unexpected argument. Pure emotion was the initial wave of reactions. Social media was inundated with words of encouragement, admiration, and support from fans. One tweet said, "This is what sports are about." Another said, "Roger Federer is a class act." With remarks like, "I'm not crying, you're crying," thousands of people shared the video. And for that reason, we adore tennis. Particularly touched were Alex's fellow Filipinos. For hours, the hashtag Proud Pinoy was popular. The story was repeatedly reported in Manila news outlets. Parents shared that they showed their children the video and used it as a lesson on humility and tenacity. A young Filipina being honored by one of the greatest athletes of all time was a moment of national pride for many. However, the tone started to change as the hours went by. Questions began to surface, along with remarks that were more critical than jubilant. Why her? Some people inquired. Many of the players are having difficulty. Why did she purchase a high-end vehicle? Others noted that, in contrast to other athletes from developing countries, Alex came from a rather affluent family. Her dad played basketball professionally. From an early age, she had access to top-notch training. One widely shared tweet said, "This isn't a rags to riches story. It's privilege that rewards privilege." The think pieces followed. Despite Federer's good intentions, sports journalists disagreed on whether the gesture conveyed the incorrect message. Does this lead to young athletes having unreasonable expectations? One article inquired, "Do we celebrate being close to fame, or are we celebrating hard work?" The optics were questioned in another essay. Federer could have given that sum to a tennis development initiative in Southeast Asia or Africa. Rather, he gifted a car to an already successful person. Although it wasn't unanimous, the criticism was loud and compelled individuals to choose sides. Roger had every right to honor someone he had personally mentored and believed in, according to those who stood up for him. Others contended that actions like this, despite their kindness, perpetuated pre-existing disparities in a sport that has already been criticized for its lack of diversity and accessibility. For the first 24 hours, Alex said nothing. She was told by her team to let the situation speak for itself. But the sound got louder. On her Instagram, comments varied from angry accusations to sincere congrats. "This wasn't earned by you. You were in the ideal position at the ideal moment." The conspiracy theory then began. Mercedes-Benz organized the entire event, according to some fans, as a marketing ploy. One TikTok breakdown stated that the car reveal was expertly framed. Months ago, this was scheduled. Others conjectured that Federer's sponsorship agreements demanded that he make a specific amount of public appearances, and that this was only a calculated public relations ploy masquerading as charity.